The pre-NFL draft process is exposing old thoughts that maybe should go away.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you guys for tuning in and making me a part of your daily routine and making me your first listen of the day. Like and subscribe, follow, all that jazz so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. We have NFL draft insiders coming on the show this week. We're going to be talking about all things Travis, Shedeur, LeJohntay, Jimmy. But first, let's talk about the ridiculous slander that Shedeur Sanders is undergoing right now because he is the son of an NFL legend, or because he is popular, or because he makes people uncomfortable with how confident he is, which I think is an issue, a microcosm of a lot of other things. Let's talk about it. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Josina Anderson shared a long sort of, I think it was honestly one of the longer tweets I've ever seen. And she was talking about what she had been told a quarterback coach from a team picking in the top 7 said about Shedeur. In short, the coach called him brash. He called him arrogant. This coach also, according to Anderson, doesn't like the culture of athletes who have fame and financial success before entering the NFL, which is basically saying he doesn't like that these guys are confident, established, that he wants them to be young and hungry and sort of like this puppy dog that they could train to be what they want. And just because someone has money, just because someone has fame, doesn't mean they aren't young and hungry, right? Shedeur Sanders has always talked about being great. And so it's kind of ironic that someone is questioning that about him when he has taken the road less traveled each step of his career, right? Let's be honest. Shedeur Sanders, 4-star recruit. And I'll pull up his recruiting profile right now because I think a lot of people are confused about, I guess, his journey to stardom, right? Everyone wants to pull he's a Nepo baby. Shedeur Sanders is ranked as a 247th player in 24/7 Sports composite rankings. The overall rankings for 24/7 had him as the 37th quarterback, 75th player in the state of Texas, right? He had offers from Jackson State, Alabama, Arizona State, Baylor, Cornell, little Ivy League in there, Florida, FAU, which he was committed to, Oregon, UCF, UCLA, UTEP, Vanderbilt. Like, he had a bunch of different offers, right? Shedeur Sanders initially committed to FAU, Florida Atlantic, because he wanted to play for Willie Taggart. And I think that sort of shows right there that he was willing to take a chance, take a risk. And then his dad gets a Jackson State job. And so rather than playing at a prominent group of 5 school, he goes and says, you know what, I'll play at the FCS level, right? And before I dive into his journey, right, this whole point that I'm making is people are trying to paint this narrative about Shedeur Sanders because of who his father is and what his background is as someone who was raised in an affluent family, that he doesn't have that he thinks he's better than everyone is basically what this guy is saying. And I'm here to tell you that's wrong, right? First of all, the Nepo baby thing, I mean, sure, right? I think Shedeur Sanders technically is a Nepo baby by definition, but in reality, Deion Sanders, as he said before, gives him the name. They have to capitalize on it, right? Being Deion Sanders' son doesn't mean anything. And I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, right? But there's sons of famous Michael Jordan's kids, right? Michael Jordan was the best basketball player of all time. His kids got they played D1 basketball. They didn't amount to anything, right? But they're Michael Jordan's kids, right? Surely they got opportunity. No, right? Shedeur Sanders has been a bona fide top recruit or top player every step of the way, and he is built on his own success. Now, having his dad be Deion Sanders, I'm sure that helped add a little notoriety, but at the end of the day, he has to build on that brand himself, right? Shiloh, let's be honest, Shiloh Sanders does not have the same level of fame that Shedeur has, right? Different positions, different levels of success, right? So it's not just given, it's earned. And so back to his journey, because I feel like there's a lot of people that have this mindset that he was just handed everything, right? So he goes to Jackson State, wins the starting job, leads Jackson State to, and I kid you not, we'll pull up the records. Jackson State was a putrid program before Deion Sanders got there, and it was a struggling program, and he takes the head coaching job and turns around right away. I think most people sort of forget that just in general. Like, they kind of ignore it. He goes 4-3 in his first, which was a shortened COVID year. 4-3, Shedeur comes on the campus. 11-2, 8-0 in conference. They lose the Celebration Bowl. Second year, 12-1, 8-0 in conference. Lose the Celebration Bowl again. Goes to Colorado. Now, again, people look at, he transferred to play for his dad. Yes, I'm sure that's a factor in him playing right away. Shedeur Sanders was still really good. And I would say majority of the schools that he wanted, that say he was on the market actually as a portal player, you're telling me that say he wanted to transfer to Texas Tech, or I don't know, like name a school, right? There's probably 10 to 15 schools in the country where he doesn't start. And that's because they had an established start already. USC, Caleb Williams, Texas, Quinn Ewers, like there's those schools, Georgia, Carson Beck or whatever. Like, I don't know if I'm getting the timeline right, but you know what I mean? Where it's like these guys are multi-year starters who are not going to have their spots taken. But majority of the other schools, Shedeur Sanders is starting at. He goes to a school in Colorado, which his father took a risk by taking that job. Colorado, honestly, was one of the worst programs in college football. They showed no signs of being a program that would ever be relevant, right? You look at the pre-Deion Sanders era, this is outside of 2016, where they went 10-4, dating back to 2007, they were below 500 every single year, except for that 2016 season and then the shortened COVID season. Colorado was a dump, right? This is, and I'll just run you guys through it. Leading up to the Deion Sanders era, Mel Tucker, or we could even go back further than that. We'll start from 2016. 10-4 under Mike McIntyre, 5-7, 5-6, or 5-7 the next year after Mike was fired. Mel Tucker, 5-7. Carl Durrell, 4-2. Carl Durrell, 4-8. Carl Durrell, 0-5. Mike Sanford, 1-5 or 1-6. So they were 1-11 that year. Like, that's a risk, right? That is him working his way up the college football food chain. Shedeur Sanders established himself as a star while being on one of the worst teams in college football, while being playing behind an offensive line. Quite frankly, probably couldn't block me, right? In 2023, even this year's line, not good, right? Shedeur Sanders is playing through all this adversity. I think people are sort of changing this narrative to fit their agendas about Deion Sanders and the Sanders family in general, to be like, you know what? We got to find things that we could poke holes in him for, because I don't like him. That's what people are doing right now. Like, they're acting as if Shedeur Sanders were playing at Alabama or Georgia or Oregon, wherever, where it's like, yeah, he was handed the keys to a program that's been successful with him, successful without him, and it'll be better when he's gone, or better. Like these Alabama and Georgia programs just pump out talent left and right. And we're pretending like Shedeur Sanders just sort of didn't resurrect a program from the ashes of the sport. Like, I don't understand how someone could discredit what he's done. And also, the thing that gets me is they didn't like his confidence, right? Shedeur Sanders' whole game is based on confidence, right? Because when you're a leader and you're confident in yourself and your team gets confident. Wow, shocking development, right? Shedeur Sanders probably led that Colorado locker room to believe in themselves more than they ever thought they could, or more than they ever thought they would, right? That team, after even going after 4-8, Shedeur Sanders stuck around. He could have gone to the NFL. He could have transferred again, right? He could have been like, hey, you know what, Dad? I don't think this is going to work out. He stuck around. He proved it. And he's confident, right? He has charisma. He has swagger. I don't understand why that's a problem, right? I think there's a problem in viewing that as a problem, because you want your quarterback to not have personality. And I think at the end of the day, it touches on a little bit of an undertone issues that we've had in this country since way back when. And we're still seeing the results of that mindset, where it's like, oh, he's a strong black man who's confident. It's too much, right? Jackson Dart's confident. Jackson Dart has a lot of swagger to him. Quinn Ewers has got that quiet confidence, right? Cam Ward is a guy who, if you watch those videos with Shedeur and Cam Ward, Cam Ward is probably just as confident as Shedeur, right? I think Shedeur's family is being, his name is being held against him. And I'm glad Josina Anderson called out. She didn't really say the team, but I'm glad she brought the the notion to light, because we know it's a top 7 team who wants a quarterback. So I'm not going to like guess who I think it is, because obviously it could be any of these teams, but the way she said it was a top 17 that needs a quarterback. So the Titans, the Browns, the Giants, the Raiders, and the Jets. So obviously it's one of those teams, right? I'm not going to jump to conclusions, but if I'm that team, I probably know who she's talking about, and I probably go talk to that guy and I go, hey, figure it the hell out or get the hell out, right? This is not a sort of mindset that we want representing our team. And if you have those outdated views of not liking someone for being famous or having money coming into the NFL, guess what? I'd go look up other jobs on Indeed or LinkedIn, because every recruit, every guy that's going to be drafted in the first round, or 99.9% of these guys, has made more money than any player in the past, right? These college guys are making hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, right? Penn State's running back, I think Nick Singleton is his name, $300K to return this past year. Arch Manning just signed a huge NIL deal, right? And I'm sure people are going to pick apart Arch Manning a little bit, but let's be real, right? I think this is a selective targeting of Shedeur by this one coach, and I think it's ridiculous. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Todd McShay's takeaway from what he's heard on Shedeur Sanders. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400,000 or 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5, S.H.5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, so that way you don't miss out on one of our fantastic interviews coming up that we're going to have a lot of fun with. So let's talk about it. Todd McShay, he's with the Ringer now, former ESPN NFL Draft Insider. He talked to multiple teams, 2 teams, about Shedeur Sanders, what the feedback was. And I think this feedback is kind of compared to what the coach said. The coach just hates Shedeur Sanders as a person. Let's just be real. He hates Shedeur's personality. He doesn't like what he represents, and he doesn't like who he is. The feedback that Tom McShay has gotten is not the first time we've heard this, and I'm sort of wondering if maybe this is the Sanders' camp way of figuring out how to get to certain teams, because it wouldn't shock me. And I don't think Deion Sanders ever was going to be vocal about how he did things, but I'm sure there's certain teams where they don't want Shedeur to go to. So this is what Todd McShay had to say. He said he spoke to 2 teams drafting in the top 10 that did not, or that are in need of a quarterback. And he said he didn't have a professional approach. He said the 2 people that I spoke to in meetings, teams in the top 10 drafting that need at quarterback, the 2 people that I spoke to in these positions left the meeting feeling like Shedeur Sanders was not overly concerned with what they thought of him. They had a 15-minute meeting with them, and when they were done, they both said in different ways, different words, that they did not feel like Shedeur Sanders cared all that much about what the organization thought about them. And then he continued saying it wasn't a professional approach. Shedeur Sanders did not take a professional approach to the interview. The other person I talked to said he wasn't taking it seriously at all. And then he says, I'm purposely not, that was the rest of the other. Someone wrote about the Josina Anderson piece, so that part was in there too. Shedeur Sanders not taking a professional approach. At the end of the day, I'm not in the meeting room. You're not in the meeting room. We don't know what exactly happened. That being said, the way I've seen Shedeur Sanders interact with people before, the media, other coaches, teammates. I find it hard to believe that he didn't take a professional approach. Was he as attentive as they would have liked? Maybe not, right? I mean, maybe without really trying to be like I'm not going to say he's throwing the interview. And Todd McShay later said there was no like bad things that he did. It just didn't seem like he was super energetic to be there. And this could be one of two things. One, I think Shedeur Sanders naturally has a laid back, chill demeanor. As someone myself who's often viewed as chill, monotone, laid back, people often view me or even Shedeur as I'm not comparing myself to Shedeur, but in that camp of people who are chill and laid back, we often get this rap of like, oh my gosh, he doesn't care, right? He's bored. He doesn't care what we're talking about. And it's not that. It's just my face, right? My face just looks like this when you're talking to me. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And that could be it, right? Or maybe if they were trying to get a little more out of Shedeur and he just wasn't giving it, maybe that's his way of sort of controlling the narrative of where he goes, right? I think in this modern day of sort of player empowerment, and when you have a father who is, or Deion Sanders, I think we all know that there's a possibility that the Sanders family is going to figure out a way to get Shedeur, I don't want to say to the team he wants, but it wouldn't shock me if they're trying to get him away from certain teams, right? And I'm not going to name the teams that I think there's a couple in that top 5-ish where I'm like, I wouldn't want to go there, just based on the history. But you obviously don't want to go out there and just ruin your reputation altogether. And so I think what Todd McShay is getting at here, or what I'm taking away from this, is these teams either got a bad read on Shedeur, or Shedeur maybe wasn't super enthusiastic about interviewing with them on purpose. So you guys comment below. Do you think Shedeur Sanders is trying to not force his way to a team, but help guide himself to a certain team? Let me know what you think. When we come back, we're going to be talking about recruiting, because it sounds like Colorado's getting pretty hot. Welcome back to Locked On Buzz. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. According to On3's recruiting insider Steve Wiltfong, things are heating up in Boulder. He said things are beginning to take shape. And heading into the spring, the Buffs are hitting the gas on top targets. They're trying to build up the quarterback room, as one of the points he made. They have Caden Salter. That's a 1-year rental. And then you have Julian Lewis, who's obviously the future, but you need guys behind him. And so he lists 4 targets that he views as being on the board for Colorado. One of them is Kayshawn Henderson, number 5 passer in the country. He's a Houston commit. Wilfong says he's shown no signs of flipping, but Colorado's, we know until they put pen to paper, Coach Prime is in play. Oscar Rios, who I've talked about before, he has an official visit set. They've also are after Brody McWhorter out of Georgia, one of the top schools there. He has programs like Auburn, Indiana, Mississippi State, Syracuse, and Wisconsin coming after him. And then Tate Reynolds, who is from Arizona, Clemson commit. So clearly Colorado is trying to bolster this room, not with just transfers, but with younger guys who come in and be the future, like Julian Lewis. Moving on. You move on to running back, which I think the running back recruitment stuff will explode. I think Coach Marshall Falk, that is, needs to get his feet under him before he really dives into recruiting. But Wiltfong said that there's an explosive tailback by the name of Deshaun Rideau, who I think Colorado is they're targeting him hard. He has 10.4 speed, which makes him one of the fastest guys in the country. And big programs after him. USC, Oregon, they're after him. And then Wiltfong made a nice point here. Because of Colorado's success with receivers, which realistically, I think they're going to get all 4 of these guys drafted: Travis, LeJounte, Will, Jimmy. You have 4 NFL receivers on one roster, and that obviously catches the eye of top receivers. So the number 3 receiver, Cedric Morgan, said he's excited to meet Coach Prime and the staff. 4-star receiver Jace Matthews, he says he can't wait to get out there and see it. A receiver from Detroit named CJ Sadler, he's already been out to Boulder, liked what he saw. Offensive line, they're working hard, right? They are all over the place. They're in the mix for 5 stars all over the place as well. So I think Coach Prime and his staff are really recruiting hard, and I think they're sort of building up this program for the future, right? This is, I mean, granted, we don't really, it's hard to compare from year to year, like how hard are they trying? But feels like the effort's there from Coach Prime in Colorado. So I think we're going to be due for some pretty big recruiting news, hint, hint, wink, wink, in the next month or so. So we'll just have to stay tuned so you don't miss out on the coverage. Thank you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen. This has been Locked on Buffs.